Hi guys, welcome back. Now it's April and it's time for me to do another wrap up. I feel like I've barely done any videos lately and the ideas are there to do the videos, but the energy to do them, I don't know. It just, anytime I think about sitting down and doing a video, I'm like, I could be reading, doing dishes, which are a constant thing, some project outside because it's spring and projects abound, and also like crafting or spending time with my kids. I don't know. It's a constant struggle. And I wish, I want to make more videos, but it's just a balancing act, y'all. And, I've been doing a lot of reading anyways, even though I'm not video making about reading. I am reading a lot. So there's that at least, because that is the most important thing and the main reason why this channel exists. So all that said, I do want to share with you what I read in the month of March. Now, in my previous video that I made, I talked about A Mother's Reckoning by Sue Klebold, so I'm not going to talk about that in this video. You can check that out. It's the video right before this one, and I just gave like a more in-depth thoughts and review on that book. So, I have a stack of books next to me. I also have my iPad to show you books that I don't have on hand right now, so I'm just going to get into what I've read. And these are in no particular order. I'm just going to grab them as they're around. So the first book I'm going to talk about really quickly, I actually listened to on audiobook, and that was Dumbing Us Down, The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Schooling by John Taylor Gatto. And this was a short read. It's been on my TBR for a while. And this was basically about one guy talking about the hidden curriculum of compulsory schooling and how he feels about public school and some historical things that he has pulled from history to support his idea of something subversive going on with public schooling. I would be lying if I told you that I did not roll my eyes a few times. I'm not saying, I'm open to conspiracy theories. Like, I don't know if y'all knew this about me, but I'm totally open to reading about conspiracies and learning about them and watching documentaries. And I definitely think conspiracies do exist. That's been proven in the past, that things have come to light that were deliberately hidden to us by the government in particular. So I don't think that conspiracies don't exist. It's just that there's a weird bug crawling on my window. Anyways, yeah, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it. Sorry for the background noise. There's construction going on in my house and it's just a mess. Projects. Yeah, it was interesting, but also boring. It was weird. Nothing stood out to me as like a light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, that totally makes sense. It's all coming together now. I wasn't that impressed. Suffice it to say, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Let's see. Another book that I read was Bunny by Mona Awad, and I bought this one off Thrift Books a while back, and I bought it because I watch Books and Lala quite a lot, and she loved this book. So I bought it and I read it, and I'm going to tell you guys, it was a struggle for me to get through this book. A struggle. This is about a college girl who is going to school for writing, I guess creative writing. And there's like this club or clique of girls or young women there who have kind of like a cult thing going on where they all kind of sound similar and look similar, and they say they call each other bunny all the time. They're the bunnies. They're the bunny cult, and they're doing weird shit, and they invite her to be part of this bunny club cult, and people turn from rabbits into people. There's rabbits that get turned into people in here, and they're weird and messed up, and none of it makes any sense, and I don't know how to explain this without spoilers, but I'm also just kind of like, It was a struggle to get through. I read it. I had a hard time picking it up. Every time I would sit it back down, I'd be like, I don't want to read this. But I kept hoping it would get better. And instead it just got weirder. It was very strange. I can't say that I would recommend this to anyone. I don't know anyone that would like this. I mean, besides Books and Lala, there's an audience for this, I'm sure. It's a little too strange for me. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Obviously, you get my feelings on it. I didn't really like it. It was confusing. There we go. Another book that I read. The Only Girl in the World by Maud Julian. And this was a nonfiction memoir about a woman that grew up, I think it was France. Yes. Yeah, she grew up in France. And this is also very cult-like, but more interesting because it's true. This girl, Maud Julian, or she's a woman now. She's all grown up. She was raised by her mom and her dad and in a very closed environment, cut off from the world under a very particular set of circumstances. Her dad adopted her mom when she was a young girl as sort of like this project where he wanted to raise a child and get them educated and I guess indoctrinated in a very certain way. And then when he decided it was time, he married her and had a child with her to produce this perfect human being. And then they kind of, they moved to this compound. I would definitely call it the compound, where they're really closed off from society. They don't really interact with anyone except for people they allowed to come in and work or do deliveries of food and stuff. And she's homeschooled, and they homeschool Maud Julian and keep her very isolated from the world. And basically her dad comes across as like this god in her life. He's this all-knowing being who has decided to have this child who will basically fix the world. So he has to raise her in this very particular way. Very messed up thinking, but I think what the beautiful part that I love about this book and about her life is she was able to expose herself to different types of literature, and it was through reading books that she got exposed to different ways of thinking and different ways of life that really helped her escape from this 3-person cult that she and her family were a part of together. Her life was definitely very loveless, her life with her parents, very loveless, very strict, and controlled, and no affection, not the way that you would raise a child at all. It was pretty sad. There were some sad points in here that tugged on me a little bit. I really enjoyed the book though. It was really interesting to read about her life, and she obviously goes to therapy now. I don't know who wouldn't need to, but just reading this, Maud Julian, for the way she grew up, she seems pretty normal, which is amazing that she was able to be that resilient. Okay, so the next book that I read was American Heart by Laura Moriarty. I think I read this closer to the beginning of the month because it seems like it's been a minute since I've held this in my hands. But this is a YA book about basically a future America in which Muslims are persecuted and are being put in detention camps, and they're being rounded up, and there are groups of them that are trying to escape to Canada. And this is mainly about the main character is a young girl or young woman, teenager, who finds herself becoming more affected by this than she had thought she would be. She's a young white girl in America who is really apathetic to what's going on. She's got her own serious problems she's dealing with within her own family, and she's not really giving much thought to what's happening to her fellow Muslim Americans. And she finds herself basically on a journey with a woman who is trying to escape the United States and get to Canada. I really like this book. I do have to say, I like that it was very travel-y and ongoing. I don't use your words here. That the storyline kept moving forward. It was like a journey to understanding other people, and a journey to leave the United States, a pretty harrowing one at that. And yeah, I really liked it. I would definitely like pass it on to my kids when they're old enough to deal with this. One interesting point in this book that I thought was an interesting sort of plot twist is the main character in here, despite her apathy, or even her, some of it's like even gets to a point of aggression where she's like, well, just do what you're told and don't blow people up, because that's the whole premise, is Muslims blow people up, and that's why they were rounding them up. And she was like, well, don't do that. I was kind of shocked because of the way that her character is set up from the beginning, as she's really non-religious, even though she's being forced to go to a religious school. And I like that, because what I was expecting from a character who didn't really care about what was going on to her what was happening to her fellow Americans, my preconceived notion was that she would be religious. And she wasn't. So that was an interesting plot twist for me. So it even made me rethink assumptions that I have. I mean, just being honest here. Another book, Adele by Leila Slimani. And she wrote The Perfect Nanny, which I think I read back in February, and I loved. One of my favorite like psychological thrillers that I've ever read. But this book is about Adele, who is basically a woman addicted to sex, and she like compulsively cheats on her husband. Like it's something it's like a need she needs fulfilled, or an addiction almost, but it never fulfills her. And it's basically just following her throughout her exploits. And now I'm having a hard time remembering it because I didn't like refresh myself. It was all right. I thought it was okay. It leaves you at the end with no real conclusion. And that was the only thing, is as I was reading, I expected to see some sort of growth or something happening, but none really happens. It kind of just was like, and that's it. Yeah, I like The Perfect Nanny better, but this was still pretty good. I liked it, and I like Leila Slimani's work so far that I've read from her, and I want her to write more because I will definitely read it. Okay, here's another one that I read that I had two people tell me was one of their favorite books of all time. So I was excited to read it, and then it kind of fell short. And that was Meg by Steve Alton. This is, I don't know what genre it fits into exactly, but this is about a scientist guy who goes down into the Mariana Trench and sees something there that changes the course of his work for the next like 13 years or something, until a new group go down the Mariana Trench and they also see something. Or wait, no, he's part of that new group. Yeah. There's some suspect things going on to scientific equipment in the Mariana Trench, and he goes down there for the second time, and basically a prehistoric monster is unleashed unto the world, and it is Meg, is it Megalodon? No, it's not Oh, it is Carcharodon Megalodon, which is a giant prehistoric shark. I would be lying if I said I didn't read this book quickly, despite how thick it looks. It's a little over 300 pages. So I read it quickly. It was definitely fast-paced. There were never any lulls in action, but it was also incredibly cheesy. Characters not well developed at all. I didn't really care about any of them or anybody that was getting eaten or destroyed by Meg. It was fun to read, but in a silly way. Like, I couldn't take it seriously, and I never really felt nervous or scared. And I was kind of hoping that Meg would bring out some anxious feelings, but it didn't happen. It's all right though. It was fine. It's definitely not one of my favorites. Let's see, another one is a read aloud I did with my kids, and that was Juniper by Monica Furlong. And I think I talked about this in my last wrap up, but it's part of the Wise Child trilogy. And so this one is a prequel to Wise Child, and it follows Juniper, the witch that you meet in Wise Child, and the family that she comes from. We learned that Juniper is actually a princess, and she's actually part of a royal family, but she has her own journey she needs to follow and not take over as the head of her royal family and become the queen of wherever they're at, somewhere in Great Britain or something. And yeah, it's magical and fun and witchcraftery, but without overtly saying witches or witchcraft. It's just a very good book. I really enjoyed reading it to my kids, and my kids love it, and they can't wait for me to read the next installment of this trilogy, which is Coleman. Okay, this one was pretty juicy. The Playground by Jane Shamilt. This was an interesting book. Oh, it was one of those where it's kind of like, oh, the tangled web we weave. This is about a family, not a family, multiple families who come together over one summer. They're brought together by one of the women in one of the families is doing tutoring. And so everyone's dropping their children off to do some summer tutoring, and the kids form this really close bond. And then through that, all the families form a close bond, and they end up getting together for parties and barbecues and even going on a whole vacation together. But sinister things start happening in this, and it has something to do with the kids. The kids become suddenly much more secretive. They aren't talking to their parents as much, and they are obsessed with being together. They always want to go off and play in the woods or play their special games in secret parts of the house. This book has some tragic points in it and some definitely hair-raising and anxiety-inducing plot points that involve the children, and the whole time you're kind of left wondering what exactly is going on. And it seems like everyone's just enmeshed in their own world and this web of relationships that they've created amongst all these families. And yeah, it's a crazy book. I would compare it to as far as like the enmeshment and entanglement of families and stories within stories and plots within plots, I would compare it to maybe Big Little Lies. If you like that kind of story setup, then I would recommend The Playground. All right, so there's actually one other book that I read that I'm not gonna get into. It's a nonfiction book, and I can't. One of the reasons I'm not gonna get into it is I can't remember the exact title of it, but it was a book about narcissism. If you are curious about it or want to read books about narcissism, and I also think it was about BPD, borderline personality disorder. So kind of like how those things can coincide together and how to deal with people in your life who have narcissistic tendencies or are narcissists and borderline personality disorder. That is a nonfiction book that I read. And if you comment below and you want to know about it, I will give you the title, but I actually can't remember it right now, which is one reason why I'm not talking about it. And another one is it's pretty self-explanatory. I listened to it through audiobook, and it was very interesting. Had a lot of practical tips and how to work on you as a person, since you cannot, if someone has a personality disorder, you can't change them, and you have to accept that. You have to accept you can't change someone, but you can work on yourself and how you respond to that in your life. So if anyone's curious, just comment and ask me below, and I will certainly tell you the name. The last book that I am going to talk about, it's not the last book I read, is, I'm pulling it up right now, Cam Girl. Oh, almost dropped it, by Mzee. And I bought this one. I think I showed it in a recent haul, but I lent it to my friend down the road, and she wanted to read it. So she has it, she read it, and I read it as well, and it was interesting. This is a nonfiction book, a memoir, if you will, about Isa, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and her journey to becoming a cam girl, which, if you didn't know, is a type of sex worker who you do sex work in front of like a webcam and you have an audience. And in her particular case, she does live shows and does live sex acts, and she gets tipped for the things that she does. I would be lying if I said this wasn't completely interesting. Her memoir starts with her as a young girl and kind of outlines how her family was not completely healthy at all. Wasn't a good place to start being a balanced and healthy human. And then from very early on, she highlights her need for attention, especially from boys. She feels this power that she gets from the conquest, so to speak. She is not interested in long-term relationship because as soon as she has that boy as her boyfriend, she's done already and wants to move on. And then kind of like her discovering cam girl work and her journey through that, and how at first she really liked it, but then, it started kind of fizzle out, and then her trying to figure out how to keep it alive and going. She's making a lot of money at one point, but it also kind of took over her whole life, was all about the camming, and she would spend hours every night doing it. And one thing I really loved about this book was all the text messaging, all the not text messaging, but chat room log of, throughout the whole show of what she was doing. She would explain what she was doing during this time, and then she actually, through the website she used, had all the chat logs, so you could actually read what was being said as she would stop and explain what she was doing and what was going on, and the conversations that happened around her shows. It was just very interesting. My only complaint about the memoir, and keeping in mind that this is someone's real life too, this isn't a story, so I don't feel like I have that much room to complain. We're kind of, I don't know, I feel kind of left off as far as, and I understand and respect the privacy here, but at the end of the book, something is revealed that's not shocking, but it is kind of like a dropped bomb of, could be the reason why she has this issue with this attention seeking and wanting, but not ever feeling satisfied. But yeah, it was just super interesting. One point that I thought was really interesting about this book in particular was the fact that despite her literally being a sex worker, she does not like sex at all. She doesn't get anything from it. It doesn't fulfill her at all, and she actually dreads having sex with anyone, male or female or anybody, any person. So I thought that was interesting, and definitely just points to like a bigger issue at hand. And it seems like she recognizes her issues, but as far as working through them, I don't know. I'm kind of left. I just want to know more and how her life is going to play out. And I'm not sure if I just said that was the last book that I read, but I actually have one more. If I did say that, I lied. Sorry. The last book that I'm going to talk to you about, for real this time, is Know My Name, a memoir by Chanel Miller. And apparently I like memoirs because I feel like I read quite a lot of memoirs and they're just so interesting. This book is written by Emily Doe, who was part of the Brock Turner rape and assault case. I think most of us, when I say Brock Turner, that will light up some memories we have in there. And at the time that this case was going on, I wasn't really into it. I wasn't following the case. I heard about it, but I never read about it. And so when I saw that there was a memoir from Chanel Miller, who was the Emily Doe in this case, I really wanted to pick it up. I half read this and also half listened to it on audiobook, and this was quite a long memoir, considering, I don't know, for some reason I thought the assault would be explained, the case would be talked about, and then that would be it. But Chanel Miller, she really goes into in every way that this assault affected her life from the very beginning, when the assault first happens, to her whole thought process. I mean, I've never read a book that so seems to get into an assault and rape survivor's mindset and the changes that their brain goes through as they're processing this over the course of several years. And also, getting that inside look into the courtroom and people's attitudes around what exactly defines rape, and how, like, her being in a certain situation, even down to what she was wearing, how much she drank, what she has done before at previous parties, or anything, you know, that didn't really pertain to exactly what happened that night, how that all gets brought up, and how it's never, at least not yet, it's never cut and dry. It was all about Brock Turner, and, you know, how much rape actually is rape if these little certain things are in place, and is it really worth it to send him to jail for prison, years and years for this thing, you know, for this, what did his dad say, a little bit, 20 minutes of action, which, what action on his part, not her part, she never consented to anything. It was a fascinating and very in-depth look of what exactly happened with that case. And now I feel like I know everything, and I don't have to go back and read any of the news articles, because now I know, because I've read Chanel Miller's book, and I would definitely recommend it if you want to learn more about that case and exactly her thought process that was going on throughout that time. Because, you know, at that time she was remaining anonymous, but now she's written this memoir and kind of done a tell-all about everything that happened. But those are all the books that I read. I think that's all of them that I read in the month of March. And if I'm counting correctly, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think I read 11 books. So that's not too bad. I think that might have been how much that I read in February. I don't know. So yeah, that's my wrap up. I tried to keep it as concise as possible, also to limit the time that I need to spend editing this video, because y'all, I'm just mentally exhausted, and the only reason I can come up with why is because of the current state of the whole world right now, and especially in the United States. I'm going to touch on that for just a moment while I'm thinking of it. I'm so exhausted, and I'm not doing anything. I'm stuck at home just like everybody else, you know, where we're all just trying our best to slow the spread of this virus. And I think it just hearing about it, reading about it, and wanting to stay informed on it, because I think it's important to read the updates that are coming out about this, is so mentally exhausting. And I can't help but get a little scared, you know, when I'm reading this stuff, even though I'm sitting safe at home, I'm doing my thing, keeping exposure way, way low. Even though I'm doing all those things, you still get like this adrenaline rush and this wave of fear of just this unknown. You know, there's so much unknown. We don't know how long realistically this is going to last. We're given rough estimates and dates, but those always change and will always be subject to change, because this is a huge thing that's affecting the whole world. And I'm just tired, and I feel weird about it, and I'm sad. And this video probably isn't the one to get into all that, but I did want to talk about it for just a minute, let you know my thoughts on it. If you would like to hear more of what's going on in my head, I would be more than happy to let you guys know. I don't have any particular theme for a video like that. I've been trying to think of some, but really I just feel weird, and I'm trying to do things to distract myself and not think about it, is not obsess about it as much. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed watching my wrap up. If you've read any of these, let me know what you thought of them in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions, as always, I'd love to hear them, especially if you have a memoir suggestion, since apparently I just really like those. So If you have a memoir suggestion for me to read and you think I would like it, feel free to leave that as well. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy and as home as much as you're able to be. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all again really soon.